Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Native Paranormal Crossroads show. So, today we are on episode 35, and we are joined by one of the paranormal rangers, Jonathan Dover. Hello, Jonathan.
Good morning. We're all
Good
here.
morning.
We're ready to go.
And so, for the co host as well, we have the galactic historian, Andrew Bartzis.
Howdy, everybody. How's it going?
Howdy, Andrew. And we have Laura Massey from Two Feathers Medicine. Hello, Laura.
Hi, everybody.
Great to all have you on. So, where are we going to go today, guys? We're going to be talking about UFOs, aren't we, Jonathan?
Well,
Dangerous things and
Things and
safety.
safety.
yeah, dangerous things.
So, what dangerous things are we talking about?
Okay, so within let's just say the paranormal community, there has been a resurgence of interest. And suddenly everybody sees paranormal stuff on TV. They see Bigfoot hunts, they see ghosts, people looking for ghosts. Just you name it, it's out there. And so a lot of people they get interested and they say, "Oh, I want to do this. I read an article on it, or I have an interest in it, or I just want something to scare me." And that's how a lot of us are. We like that little bit of an adrenaline rush. And so we start getting into investigating these things or just going somewhere to experience them. And you can go to places like the Queen Mary and go on a ghost tour. There are certain hotels across the United States that tout themselves as haunted locations, battlefields like Gettysburg. And so people are actively seeking this stuff out. And as they get deeper into it and start committing themselves to doing full investigations, they run into some problems. And in some cases, it scares them to the point where they don't want anything to do with it anymore. Um, or can get injured, or in some cases, even killed. And so we want to talk a little bit about that. Um, Common sense is not a automatic virtue anymore. Believe it or not, UCLA actually taught a course in common sense back in the 70s. So they were seeing it back then. So you have people making decisions. Uh, I just recently ran into a case where my advice was requested. A friend of mine, and he said that they had a hitchhiker come home with them. So this was a ghost. They suddenly experienced poltergeist activity in the house. Um, and it got to the point where it was becoming so disruptive that they had to do something about it. Then they started getting injured. They started getting bruises. Something unseen would just punch them in the back or in the side. They'd get scratch marks that would bleed. And they started getting fearful. And I gave them the best advice that I could, and gave them some leads on who they could talk to and who they could see. Um, they went that route. They talked to some ministers and some medicine men. And by the time it was all done, they called me back and they said, "It's all gone now." And they were very happy. But that was an inadvertent kind of thing. Somewhere along the line, they picked up something or something followed them, and they had these experiences. But what I'm referring to really is people that go out, and we saw it in tactical training. Um, in tactical training, when you have, we'll just be really general here. You have a suspect. He's armed with a weapon, and you're called to go take care of that situation. A lot of officers will get so focused on it that they will actually do what we call suck into the situation. They will get so focused that retreat never crosses their mind, or tactical considerations never come to the forefront. You just get focused on it, you get tunnel vision, and then you start moving toward the danger. And that can happen in stressful situations. And we used to see it when we trained people in firearms, that it would get so stressful that you'd literally have to grab them by the back of the belt and the collar and stop them, and then tell them, holster, make safe, holster. And then you'd ask them, okay, what are you doing? Where are you going? What are you thinking? And get them to kind of snap out of it and realize that maybe they need to take cover or get in concealment, or to back up and wait for additional help. So there are considerations. Um, and when me and Stan were doing a lot of these investigations, we did get interest from TV producers. One of them came out, and he, without going into a lot of detail, we had a skinwalker encounter. And uh, every producer we talk to, we tell them we are not going to look for skinwalkers. And if you start looking for them, we're pulling the plug, because these things can kill. This producer, we had a coyote come within 20 feet of us and just stand there and look at us. And soon after, me and Stan looked at each other and we knew exactly what it was. And we took off running toward it. And it ran over the rise and down a little hill. As soon as we got there, which was just a few seconds behind it, it was gone. And we never found it. We never saw any tracks or anything. And so when we, later on, that producer got sick, and he got sicker and sicker. And he went to the doctors. The doctors said, we don't know what's wrong with you. We can't figure it out. He just kept going into the hospital for more and more tests. And the thing darn near killed him. And he stayed sick for about a week and a week and a half, a year and a half. And it took him that long to recover. So when I tell you that there are things out there that can hurt you, uh, I kid you not. And
Mhm.
so, you need to have the ability to look at a situation and maybe back up or back out until. And then the other thing is training. Get
Yeah.
trained is so important. Uh, I was a criminal investigator. I had gone to the Glencoe uh, Criminal Investigation School. They call it Criminal Investigation Training Program, class of 028. And this is at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. So for 11 weeks, you're taught how to investigate cases, criminal cases. And when I got into investigating paranormal stuff, I had to recalibrate, so to speak, and completely back up and take a whole nother look and start doing the research, contacting groups like MUFON and other UFO groups, and asking them, how do you communicate with people? How do you talk to them? What kind of questions do you ask? Why do you ask those questions? Um, with hauntings, we went through all the equipment that uh, investigators use that you see on TV. What works, what doesn't work, what can cause false readings, things like that. And our job was mainly to document stuff, and we didn't have money for high dollar equipment. So we did the best with what we had. Um, but in the case of skinwalkers, we would not. It was a very private thing. We didn't tell anybody about those stories until much, much later. And Bigfoot, you know, I have never heard of anybody being killed by a Bigfoot, but I've heard of attacks and I've heard of people being chased by them. So, and as big as they are, you know, they can do some damage if they wanted to.
So,
So,
Jonathan,
yeah,
I've got a question. So, do you remember your first like paranormal call out? You know, when you got called out first for some paranormal activity. Do you remember the first one you got called out to?
yeah, that was the Bloomfield Bigfoot case. And in that case, over 30 people had sightings of Bigfoot along the San Juan River from about that Kirtland area, all and Bloomfield, all the way down to Shiprock, um, which is a lot of river to cover. Um, they went to the police department as a group, and the local police department just laughed at them and asked them, "How much have you had to drink?" And they did this in front of the reporters from the press. So that came out in the papers. The people turned their backs on the police department and they asked the Navajo Rangers to come out. We sent a 6-man tactical team to that location and spent 2 nights and 3 days basically going through the brush and looking for evidence. We came up with foot tracks, samples, plaster casts, 21-inch footprints. We came up with hair samples that came back as unknown carnivore, and we interviewed everybody that we could find that had had a sighting. And, they were mainly happy that somebody was taking an interest. And during the night, we had officers out with night vision equipment and forward looking infrared systems, or FLIR. And we were keeping watch on that whole area with no sightings reported. But it was a pretty major operation. And by the time we got done, we were pretty, I guess, in your language, chuffed that we had made it through this thing, because there were times when you were walking the brush, the tamaracks are so thick. Once you get in there, it's gets dark, and some of them are just rabbit trails that you have to get on your hands and knees and crawl through. And meanwhile, the mosquitoes and the bugs and everything's biting you, and so you learn pretty quick, that most of your fancy bug sprays don't really work well.
So I have a question about fine line between ego, no fear, and common sense when dealing with paranormal. What are some of the top three signs that your ego is taking over and you should keep yourself in check versus pushing on in the investigation?
Well, ego is an interesting thing. Uh, Ego usually requires that you have an audience. And if you have an audience, then I've seen people just go straight into dangerous situations and almost like they're blundering into it because they want to
Mhm.
impress everybody. Um, and then, they don't tactically make considerations. Say you have a house and your guy is going to go in, and there's an armed person inside that said that he's not going to be taken alive. Suddenly, one of your team members says, "Follow me," goes over there and tries to kick in the door. The problem with that is that if you're thinking tactically, uh, you'll get your people together and get a plan together, and you look at the house. The house itself gives you a lot of clues as to where everything is. You can usually find the living room right up front. The kitchen should be right there too. Depending on how many bedrooms it has, you'll see where the laundry room is based on the pipes coming out the ceiling. You'll see where the exhaust is for the bathroom, and you can kind of get an idea in your mind of how that house is laid out. Now, in a critical situation, if somebody's shooting at you, again, there's a lot of things you're going to do. You're going to cut the power off. You're going to cut the gas off. Uh, you're going to get maybe Navajo Housing Authority to pull the blueprints off that house to see exactly where everything is. And then you're going to have a plan. And you might wait. And I have done this many times till 2 or 3 in the morning. And then when you kick in the door, there's a suspect sleeping on the couch with a rifle, and but you're on him before he can even wake up. So there's a lot of things going on. But if you got a guy that just dives right in, then it can get scary.
So is
And then
it
the
so?
next, hold on real quick. The next thing is, what are some of the initial signs things are starting to get out of hand? The various things that you can say, hey, check what's going on. They're getting out of hand now.
Okay, again, this is a judgment call. You're going to go into a situation, maybe it's a haunting or poltergeist type situation, and I like to call it my spidey sense starts tingling. You get this feeling, and that's your basically your sixth sense talking to you. And yeah, a lot of people will say that's spirit talking to me, or the ancient ones, or whoever it is. And if you listen to that, it'll stop you. I had a situation with a kid that was shooting up his neighborhood, and he was supposedly holed up in the house. So we searched the house. He was no longer there. The officers went looking around the rest of the neighborhood, and after a while, after a couple of hours, I told the guys, I says, let's go back and search the house again. And they said, well, we already searched the house. I said, well, let's search it again. So we went in, and as I was coming around the corner to one of the bedrooms, I stopped because I just got my spidey sense started going off, and I backed up. And I told the other officers, I says, I got a bad feeling what's around that corner there, and there's no way that you can cut the pie and get some distance on it and see what's around that corner because you'd hit a wall. So we started calling out and telling the kid in there, we know you're there, put the weapon down, come out, with your hands up. Sure enough, he comes up with his hands up, from around that same corner. But he had been laying on the floor with his weapon. And if I would have turned the corner, I would have taken a round. So, sometimes your sixth sense will talk to you. Sometimes things will start happening. And at first, it's interesting that all this stuff is happening around you and you're trying to document it. You're trying to get proof. And then maybe something goes a little too far. And again, your judgment has to come in and say, hey, this is getting out of hand now. It might be a scratch mark on your arm or on part of your body. Stan had one where a finger came out, just like an invisible finger went across. I call it his lip caterpillar. And, it just freaked him out. And they knew that something bigger was going on in this building, for something to manifest in that way. Um, so there's a lot of things that happen. Um, where you should take note and say, okay, maybe I'm getting in over my head. Maybe I ought to back out just a little bit, reassess, and then decide if I want to go back in and do some more.
Have you ever been, spiritually attacked like that, attacked from the unseen that's left you with marks or anything yourself?
Yes, I have. I received a rather long scratch mark on my right arm. And the interesting thing on that one was that that scratch mark started here and it spiraled around my arm all the way up. And I have no idea how I could have gotten that scratch mark. And it looked like it had bled. I was kind of upset because I was in a hotel room and there was blood on the sheets afterwards. And it wasn't there due to any extracurricular activities. It just happened while I was sleeping. And I woke up the next morning and Stan's, we were speaking down in Phoenix and Stan says, what the heck happened to you? And I had this blood track, on my arm from the scabbing.
So that wasn't while you were on an investigation then, that was in your downtime.
That was in our downtime. We were getting ready to speak. And so we were staying at a hotel.
So, what was it like working with Stan then? I guess you guys had a special bond, and like as you worked together in a team in that environment, what was that like? Because I guess you need people around you can trust, who have your back.
Well, Stan, I always tease him. I say, I knew you since you were a baby ranger. And, he was a rookie when he first came on. And then they paired us up together later on for me to teach him some things about archaeology. And as, uh, as we got into it, we got to be pretty good friends. And years later, I think it was like 5 or 6 years later, we started doing these investigations. And it wasn't our decision to do them. We were detailed to do the investigations, and our chief, he trusted us. He knew that we had the skill. So both of us were on the same learning curve as far as a lot of this went. And Stan did a number of investigations on his own that are in his book, which incidentally came out yesterday. And and then I did other investigations on my own, um, and then we did investigations together. So it got to be just one after another. I think at one point we were doing 77 per year of these type of investigations. So it's a matter of blundering through sometimes. Sometimes you just don't know what you're doing and you back up and you say, I need to do a little more research or I need to talk to some people and find out uh, what I'm doing wrong or what I need to do better. So we're constantly hot washing every investigation and figuring out what we can do better and how we can better document evidence.
All right, so one more thing. So we've talked about injuries, we talked about common sense. How does one practice common sense?
Oh boy, that's a tough one. Uh,
Yes,
it's not something that people are born with. That's what I found out.
yeah, I agree. That's why they need practice.
And you really need to develop that inner voice. It's like a muscle. If you don't develop it, it atrophies and it goes away. Just like if you don't use your legs, pretty soon you're not going to be able to walk. So I can't really tell you how to find that inner voice, your conscience, but it's there. It's what tells us what's right and wrong. It tells us, hey, there's repercussions if I just go out and grab this lady's purse. You know, I could go to jail. And so, this it's our brain that keeps us thinking about these things. And you have to think in terms of what could go wrong, what could go well, and what is the limit that I'm going to go before everything goes wrong, and how can I extricate myself or back up out of it.
Having an out plan.
Yeah,
Okay?
having
If you get scratches, you will leave. You will not stay. If a simple checklist. If something kicks you in the ass, you should leave. Okay, go get help. Some logic is as much as common sense and logic go hand in hand.
right.
Okay,
And it's like I said, it's listening to that inner voice.
yeah,
But like you said, having a list, having something there that says this is a red line, and if this gets crossed, then it's time to reevaluate.
yeah. It's not run exactly. Reevaluate. Okay, maybe you need backup on this situation, or you need someone else because a lot of people, if they're lone ghost hunting, that camera is their audience. I'm gonna
Right,
because back in their back of their head, this could be $1 million footage,
right. And
which will force them to go too long.
we always say advance to the rear. So
Yes, fighting advance to the rear.
So
that
that would be the ego then,
there's
wouldn't it, Andrew? The ego
yeah.
Could
take.
be
Yeah.
could be vanity too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, all of us have ego. All of us have vanity. Um, it's just a part of every person's makeup, and it's how you let that thing run. If you let it run on its own, it's going to get you in trouble.
I mean, it becomes zealotry, doesn't it? If you're going to pursue something when you are in evident danger, even if you're not sure what that danger is, but something has already happened to you.
Yeah, yeah. It can be rather frightening
Hmm.
to be in an unknown situation like that. And that's happened to me during skinwalker investigations. That just got so eerie that you just knew something around the corner was, could kill you. And and they're people just like you and me. So, but they're at that stage, they're animalistic. And so, they could poison you. Most likely they'll poison you. And we've even been attacked after speaking about that subject. Uh, Almost like a psychic attack where our families had near intersection accidents or head-on collisions, 9 in one weekend. So that's a lot of family members. Plus, I got run off the road and Stan almost got hit head on.
So I guess when you see all those videos online, the policemen who end up in jail or the police officers, because they go into the force for the wrong reasons, for their ego, for the vanity, to feed that. So you can really see it when they're under pressure that they make the wrong choices because they're mostly in that vanity point. You see it time and time again on videos.
Yeah, and it's sad because officers, they put their lives on the line, yes. And the only time I was told that you need to actually run into a situation, irregardless, is during an active school shooting. We were taught to take extra ammo, go in and engage, take that person's attention away from the other kids that he's shooting at, and make him engage with you. So, you can't sit outside of the school and say, I'm going to wait for backup and I'm going to wait for the SWAT team. If you're the first one there, you go in and there might be bullets flying, but you have to go in and put your life on the line to take care of that situation. But there are other situations where officers naturally just suck right into the scene, and you see it all the time. Officers are assigned uh, being a supervisor, being a sergeant. Uh, One time we had a broken window at a car dealership, and the officer actually got on the air and started talking about, well, I got to stay here. I got a broken window. Um, this was right around the 4th of July. And we got another call, and I was upset because usually if there's something that sucks in all the officers, you have to decide, you've seen them, all these officers smoking cigarettes and BSing out at an accident scene. And I'd tell my guys, okay, I need you, and you get back on the road. And I only need, one person here to help with the investigation. So, you have to cut these guys loose. Otherwise, they'll just stay around because they're curious too. And on this night, we had a shots fired call. Now, understand it's 4th of July. So, it turns into basically a firecracker complaint. And I didn't have any backup. When I rolled on it, I took it tactically. I stopped several houses down in the dark, walked up to the house quietly. When I got to the door, this woman was sitting on a couch inside, and there was a guy on the floor laying there like he's sleeping. And as I put my face closer to the door, just the screen was closed, but the door was open. The woman came running out and jumped behind me on the front steps and said, I tried to get the gun away from him. I tried. He's been shooting it. And just then the guy woke up, and I noticed, he's laying like this, and right near his right hand was the butt of a revolver sticking out from under the couch. And he kept reaching for it. I drew my weapon. The door was open at that point. Um, and I figured if he grabbed that gun, we're going to have a shootout with a distance of about 4 feet. And the woman was pressed up against me, so I couldn't back up. That was my goal, was to get shove her off and get some distance, because distance is always your friend. And he kept reaching for that gun. I kept telling him, pull your hand away. I'm going to shoot you. And finally, I decided that I was going to have to shoot him in the head and shut the switch off. And so I brought the sight up to the back of his head, and I told him, and I realized right then that I was talking to a dead man. It was the weirdest thing. And I told him finally, I says, if you reach another inch toward that gun, I'm going to scatter your head all over the floor. I was carrying a 357 Magnum. And I remember pulling the trigger as he reached, and I could hear the hammer go back. And with a double action revolver, you hear it click, click, and then click, and the sear's ready to let go. And he finally pulled his hands away and put them under him. And I was dropped the hammer immediately, made it safe, holstered, and jumped on his back. And I had so much adrenaline, I could hear the ligaments popping in his shoulders as I cranked his arms back. And he went to jail. He was I charged him with kidnapping, attempted kidnapping, and aggravated assault. And the county attorney's office charged him with attempted homicide.
So,
So, but just another story. I got hundreds of them.
so Jonathan, what was it like for you switching off then? When you had your time off, time to rest, and what was it like for you as you were kind of in the midst of your career there?
It was. It's not something that you mentally do. You tend to compartmentalize things, and for your own sanity. Otherwise, they just come back and haunt you all the time, and all that PTSD, all that stress, and and you can get that from doing paranormal investigations too. After you've been in so many of them, and you start seeing trends, and you start saying, "Wow, this stuff is real." It's not make believe. It's not myth. And so you do that. It's just something that you have to do. Um, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So, what's the most frightening or nerve wracking or something that really bothered you experience wise with the unseen world? Something you couldn't explain that happened to you?
the thing that bothered me probably the most was having lost time. And like I said in other episodes, you're driving down the road, you pass a location that you're very familiar with. You know that you only have 5 or 10 minutes to get home. It's rural. It's all open country, and suddenly, after driving for another 30 minutes, you pass the same location again, and you find out that 30 minutes has disappeared out of your life. And that's happened to me on a lot of different occasions. I'm skeptical that, people say, oh, you were abducted, you were taken aboard a UFO. Um, I'm not willing to buy into that. I just, to me, it's an anomaly that something happened as far as time, this time stream goes. And I don't know why. Uh, yeah, I'd like to try regression hypnosis and see if those incidents, if there's anything else there. But I'm also told by some of the top people in the field that regression hypnosis is not recommended for everybody because if you find out what actually happened, it could destroy your life. So, there again, there's a balancing thing there. So, in my case, it happened so many times that I got myself a dash cam and I says I'm going to start reviewing, take the deal out and watch it on the TV and see what happened. And everything stopped. Everything stopped, including seeing UFOs, which I used to see all the time. So, I always joke about it and say I'm good with that, and I am. I know I've seen UFOs my whole career for 30 years. Um, don't really care if I see any more or not. Um, after you've been there, done that, moved on. Um, so but I guess in a way, basically because they're associated with missing time, I don't want to have those missing time episodes again. So that's probably the only thing that kind of shook me up a little bit.
And so, how did faith help you throughout your career as well as a police officer, as a paranormal officer? Sorry.
How do you stay healthy?
No, faith. Faith, having
Stay,
faith to
oh,
God, to
faith.
spirit.
Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, it's okay.
Um, faith is something that's deep inside all of us. I've said it before. Um, I am a born again Christian. I was raised in a Christian church that was independent, and so learned all about the Bible, the Old Testament, the New Testament, um, and then after I got out of high school, for about 3 years, I attended what is now called the Indian Bible Institute. All my classmates became preachers. I became a law enforcement officer. Um, So I do have some knowledge of the scriptures. I've studied the Greek Septuagint. I've studied the Latin Vulgate. Um, you know, all those different things to delve into what the scriptures say. And so I have a very deep faith. Now I've come to realize that there's more to that. In native culture, they also worship one supreme being, a God. They call him the creator or the everywhere spirit. And so, I've looked at that and said, it's probably one and the same. God reveals himself to all of us in different ways. And so I've maintained that faith, but there are things within native culture that actually work, and there's scientific reasons for them. And they've been used for, literally thousands of years, such as smudging, um, different medicines that they use, uh, different teas that they drink, that are all pretty much natural. The only thing you have to do is maybe sieve them out really good so that you're not building up a lot of excess junk in your kidneys and your liver. Just like what happens if people take too many uh, pills, supplements. You can get toxic reactions within your liver and your kidneys. So there's something, you have to be careful even with that. And it works. It works for me. So I maintain that and study the historical significance of how they were doing things and why they were doing things, and then I make it my own.
So we've got a lot of comments in the chat as well. So if anybody has any questions for Jonathan, for us lot, drop them in the chat and we'll answer them. I don't believe there's any questions at the moment, just people commenting. Also, as well, if you drop a subscribe, a like, we appreciate all of the comments. The chat has been very busy in this show. So do we have any more questions, Andrew, Laura? Any more insights?
Yeah, I got a question slash statement. Maybe something you could help people on the journey of getting fear out of them. You talked before about disconnecting. What are some of the ways that people can help themselves to get out of fear? Fear can be rampant in these modern days and it can take over people really easy.
Well, one of the things that I've done is since junior high, I've studied martial arts, judo, different karates, kung fu, all these different systems, weapon systems, and everything else. And everybody knows the name Bruce Lee. Well, Bruce Lee wrote a book. It's called The Tao of Jeet Kune Do, or The Way of the Intercepting Fist. And in it, he's just got these little pithy statements all through the book. And one of them says, can you not look at a situation without naming it? Naming it, making it a word, causes fear. So what he's saying is, don't name the situation in your own mind. Don't say this is what it is and try to pigeonhole it. And I've taken this as an axiom of how I live. I don't look at a situation and say, "Oh, this is exactly what's going on." Um, I react to what comes to me, and so if you don't say, "Oh, it's a ghost," or it's an evil spirit, or it's something malignant, that's coming after you, and then you go back to all the horror movies that you've seen, and you go back to all the alien B movies that you've seen, and pretty soon that fear starts getting in there, and that clouds your judgment, and you're no longer able to react properly. So that's one of the things that I do. The other thing is I study and I research things and I find out, what can be expected and go from there. Because if you're knowledgeable about something, it won't surprise you when it happens.
What you're talking about is you get yourself prepared.
Yeah, preparation means a lot,
Yeah.
and you can do it in a few minutes, or you can take days to do it. I actually have to take days to go to Disneyland in Anaheim because I don't like being in crowds.
I have
And
this old saying: preparation depicts the execution.
right, so I have to get myself psyched up just to go to Disneyland and endure it for the day, and that's just because um, you can feel people's emotions while you're there, and it's overwhelming sometimes.
So, what advice would you have, Jonathan, for investigators who go into this, like we said earlier, with the ego running it, a bit gung ho, and they go into situations which they really don't know what is happening within that unseen world and what's going to affect them? What would you suggest if they still want to investigate it? But what are the parameters for investigating that safely?
Well, find out what you want to do. I mean, we investigated everything paranormal, but there are groups out there, say the Mutual UFO Network, that you can actually take their training course and be certified as an investigator. Um, and it's pretty regimented. There's a test, there's paperwork that you have to study. Other areas they have don't just watch TV shows. You know, TV shows can give you an idea, but a lot of times some of those things are staged. So, you know, there are plenty of information on the internet, and you're going to have to weed through them. Some of them are written by people who have fantasies about doing this. And so they're going to write they're going to use AI to write these things and make it sound, scary and interesting and all that stuff. But, find reputable sources that tell you how to look at these things, depending on what field you want to go into, and realize that, there are dangers out there. There are environmental dangers. You can get out and, be hit by a hurricane. You can have a cloudburst or a microburst hit you. You can get struck by lightning. You can get snake bit. There's all kinds. Bears. Um, how does it go? Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! They're they're out there,
Yeah.
and we think that everything is a park. It's all like built so that we can stay perfectly safe, and nature is not. Nature is just nature. It doesn't try to be fair. Nothing's fair out there. It's just what it is. So
So,
somebody mentioned just now that let your light shine from within, and I have to mention this. I've been to numerous conferences, and in a bunch of them, you always have people. When you walk into the room, people that are sitting at the tables will say hello to you. I've actually had people, put their arm up and go, ah. They said your aura is blinding, and at first I thought, oh, they're just trying to sell me something. And then after a while, people would tell me, yeah, your aura is white and it's blinding. And I've been told that for the last 20 years, and it hasn't changed color yet. So I have that in my mind that maybe these things can see this, and that's some form of protection also.
So how important is respect, Jonathan? Because for me, that's one of the best things to go as you go into a new environment like that. Having respect for the land and what's around you, instead of going in with disrespect.
Well, in the case of archaeological sites, and I don't recommend people go to them just to go to them, because spirits of dead people are there. The burials are there. And on our Navajo Nation, it's actually illegal to go to an archaeological site unless you're a ranger, unless you're a medicine man, or unless you're an archaeologist. Even a police officer can't go to those places. And I was told that if you approach this place with respect, don't kick the ground, don't pee on the ground, don't spit, um, but have this respect that this is somebody's resting place, and walk quietly and take care of what you need to do. It might be a damage assessment to see how much damage has occurred there, um, and then leave. And then when you leave, sometimes I'll carry tobacco with me and bless it, you know, give an offering of tobacco when I'm leaving, because that's the native way. And then I'll smudge myself afterwards, so that I know I'm not bringing home anything, and I don't pick up souvenirs. So be careful with that, because I've had people pick up pottery sherds and take them home, and then suddenly a bunch of stuff is happening, and they're wondering why. So and then once we got those pottery sherds out of the house and reburied, uh, back near where they came from, we were able to and smoke the house. A lot of that activity went away.
So we've got a question in the chat, so I'll just put it up for you, Jonathan. So have you ever encountered something that could have harmed you and you knew it, but acted more like an annoyed adult?
Well, the only question I have is, am I the one that's acting like an annoyed adult, or is it? Um, we've had spirits that showed up, bouncing, invisible toy balls or rolling balls across the floor. Um, Stan's gotten scratch marks from things, and you know, on the stairwell way above where nobody could possibly get to, there's handprints up there from dusty hands, facing the wrong way, almost like they're hanging upside down. Um, and in those cases, you have to decide, okay, do we back out or do we continue on? He decided to continue on because this was one of our major cases. But he could tell that the thing was annoyed, and it actually did follow him home. And even to this day, he has occurrences occurring around him, uh, with coins appearing. So that thing was a key signature of what was happening at this building. So yeah, these things can follow you home. He hasn't been able to get rid of it. And I keep telling him, well, if you just wait long enough, you're going to be rich uh, if you count up all those coins.
And
But
a question about comedy as well. Like, and what you did was very serious at times, but was there that need for comedy just to kind of break up everything at times, just to kind of have that laughter frequency, which I feel is
I,
so important.
I am a huge fan of comedy. I think my two favorite characters are Don Knotts as Officer Barney Fife, and Peter Sellers as Inspector Clouseau. And if you get into comedy, a comedian has to be very, very intelligent to be able to switch things around and see the lighter side of something. And so you'll find out some of these guys are brilliant. Um, it's always intrigued me. I love the Three Stooges. I love slapstick, Laurel and Hardy, uh, all the greats. And I've studied them and in some ways tried to emulate them. And I find out that in a tense situation, saying something funny can diffuse things, especially when other people are starting to panic. And we had a situation here not too long ago where you know what a ding dong ditch is, where kids run up to your doorbell, ring it numerous times, and then take off running. Well, this is going on in the whole community, and the whole community um, was getting up in arms. This is just a few weeks ago, and I went out and I says I'm going to find these guys, and we went driving around the neighborhood, and we actually hunted them down because my community is a small community, so everybody knows everybody, and neighbors were saying, "Oh, they're over in that house," you know. Then we got their parents and got them involved. And as we were talking to the parents, I cracked a few jokes and kind of diffused things because one of the people just wanted to strangle the kid, and another one is saying, you know, I've got a gun and I'm gonna shoot you next time you come to my house. And you know, I was trying to figure out a way to make light of it in a way that would kind of momentarily get people to smile and realize that, you know, hey, don't go down that rabbit hole. So yeah, I'm a great student of comedy.
Bet you've picked up some one-liners over the time.
Oh yeah, yeah,
A lot of ghost jokes.
yeah, and
Two
you know,
ghosts walk into a bar. What happens next? They don't get served because the bartender can't see them.
right, right. So you know, that's why I'm always, you know, looking for the funny side of things. You know, just like I talk about my training and say I've been through 4,000 hours of training to be a law enforcement officer. And so I like to tell people I'm the best of the best of the best, sir, with honors, you know, and see how many people pick up on it, you know, where that came from, what movie did that come from, you know, and so you know, it's just I love making people smile, and if I can make you smile, then I'll have done my job, um, and then you don't have to just listen to me drone on and on.
So on that comedy note, we are at the end of the show. So we're at the end. So, Jonathan, any last words of wisdom?
Slowly I turned, just as Niagara Falls popped up. um, yeah, like I said, Michelle's on a flight, so she couldn't be here. Stan is going to his first book signing in Denver, so he'll be yeah, somewhere in Denver, uh, and he's pretty excited about it. And so I'm really happy for him. I told him when you make a bunch of money, I'll be your best friend until you run out. So
Thank you, Andrew. Any last words from you?
Last words. We will be back next week for another Paranormal Rangers episode. And if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can go to my website, andrewbarnes.com. Look forward to seeing you all on another show.
Thank you, Andrew. Laura.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. What a great show. Yeah, I agree with Jonathan. It's like if things are looking a bit grim, then you can always flip the frequencies, as Andrew would say, with a bit of comedy. And that energy can diffuse a lot of tense situations. As long as you're not in danger there, as Jonathan said. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for turning up and for being so lively. And thank you, Stan, for your time, and my co-hosts, Andrew and Dale.
Jonathan.
Oh, one last word: be adventuresome. Do the hot wings challenge.
Do the
What's
Uh,
hot challenge.
if you want.
If the wings get progressively hotter and hotter and hotter.
If your sixth sense tells you it's okay.
Yes. Good test of common sense.
Well, what's it going to be like coming out the other end? That's my question.
That's the test of common sense, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So thank you everyone for watching, and if you'd like, I offer psychic surgery sessions, so head over to daletobin.com if you'd like to book a private session with me. I'd like to say thank you for everyone. The comments, the chat has been lively today. We'll be back next week. Goodbye.